before you buy a home computer.
Electronic games being heralded by folks in the trade as this year's holiday bestseller.
Children have skipped school or stolen money to play the games.
I'll be looking at the electronic game craze.
And at the end of the tape, I'll be back to tell you how to safeguard your computer.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Streamer News. Critical Hammer says, I was here. In fact, yes, you were. We are in a completely disastrous hair day, but we're just going to roll with it and get today's stream going. It's fine. It's fine. Not a big deal. Today, we've got quite a few kind of little topics together, and then a couple big topics I wanted to touch on based on kind of viewer requests and stuff like that. And then we got quite a few little products to check out during the unboxing section as well. Doing a little housekeeping here before we get to the main content. I did want to mention I had quite a bit of streaming related content going up prior to today's stream, this week. So we have, for example, my Shure MV7 review, which is a broadcast dynamic microphone that is both XLR and USB, which is pretty cool. So we had that go live. We also had content such as my AverMedia PW513 webcam review, which I posted on Wednesday, and you can see some of the quality here. It is actually pretty nice. Of course, this is 720p being upscaled to 4K because of where I'm playing it, but pretty nice little webcam. If you've been looking for an actual webcam worth buying, that is definitely the one you want to go with because it is freaking phenomenal. I also posted this sick little montage for the Elgato Epoch Cam acquisition, and I'm just gonna play it because I love what I did with the graphics so much. I'm just stupidly happy with how that turned out. I know it's a little goofy thing, but whenever I make something that I can just like sit there and dance to as it's playing, I'm always really excited. And then of course, I wanted to point out the drama of the Atomos Connect capture card, which was a little basically clone of the $3 Cant Links that was sold for $80. And I will say that Atomos has not sent a single response to my emails after posting that review, which was totally expected, but completely amusing. I also wanted to point out that I actually picked up a couple more of these Cant Links here. So this is the one I originally bought, which was the blue AVS one that I showed in my review. So I still have this one. I've taken it apart a couple times. I've taken off the heatsink. I've glued it back on, whatever. But then I picked up 3 more from different companies. Now, 2 of them shipped in the exact same box, so I'm gonna have a fun time identifying which one is which. Actually, they still have the seller identifier here, so this one is Bifail. It seems appropriate. And then Fururi is this one, and then this one ships in a completely different box. And this one's from Mavislink. And so I wanted to get a couple different sample points of them to kind of compare, see which ones may not have heat sinks, because a lot of you wrote in that you got Cant Links and they didn't have heat sinks and then they overheated and died after like 3 hours of streaming. So I want to see if there's any, if I can identify any that don't ship with heat sinks, as well as any that don't have good latency or anything like that. And otherwise, I am stacking 4 of these together in a USB hub to set up a multicam thing that should be pretty cool. Ow. Also, I wanted to point out that I also have there's my hotkey. I also have a new playlist for budget capture card reviews, so I can keep them all in one place. So you know, I've got the Cant Link, I've got the RIAA that I reviewed a couple years ago. I've got the Atomos Connect, and so I'm getting them all in one place, which I can, that way if you're looking, because I have a lot of people that share out the Can't Link review and things like that, and then people want to know where the rest of the knockoff capture card reviews are. I'm putting them all in one place so you can just kind of share that directly. One last bit of housekeeping here, in case you didn't see my tweets about it. We finally have an official announcement of my Stream Professor Approved badge, which is basically like one of those classic holofoil stickers, which will be posted on ideally some marketing pages, if not product boxes at some point of some certain products, as I have some rather kind of strict requirements for capture cards, webcams, and some side accessories for audio and stuff that I think meet my like specific requirements for what I think I consider to be like top tier streaming hardware. And so, for example, for capture cards, they need to have under 65 milliseconds of preview latency, needs to be USB 3 or PCIe, because what else is anyone going to use? Needs to have YUY2 or XRGB available as actual chroma subsampling, and actually having it work. Some of the older Elgato cards had that added in a driver, but it's still not actually there. Like, it's still emulated from NV12, whereas the 4K 60 Pro Mark II actually captures XRGB. And then a couple notes about compelling features. So capture cards, AverMedia 4K Duo and Ultra, Elgato HD60S Plus 4K 60 Pro Mark II, the Magewell 4K PCIe card, and then the Blackmagic A10 Mini Pro, which I should hopefully have some more news coming on in the future. And then microphones, HyperX Quadcast and Quadcast S, and then the Elgato Wave Mics qualify. I have qualifications there. The HuddleCam, the AverMedia PW513 and Sub2R qualify as webcams. And then under accessories, I have the Stream Deck, Touch Portal, even though it's an app, Loop Deck Live, the Go, which we'll be checking out in the unboxing section today, the Go XLR and Mini, and then the Audient Evo 4, which is an audio interface I've actually been using for a few months now, and I should hopefully have a review coming soon, because it is actually pretty awesome for a tiny little plasticky feeling audio interface. So it's kind of what I had today. Sorry, I was sort of sick this week. It's just allergies from changing over to fall. It always happens, but I've been kind of sick this week, so you may see me drinking a lot more than usual in these streams. So apologies in advance. But yeah, that's about the housekeeping for this week. So let's jump into the actual news, which starts with a tweet of my own. A lot of people saw in the Intel 11th Gen Core processor announcements that they said new media encoders and listed AV1 as an available encoder. However, this was a typo, and later a corrected slide was issued where it shows separate decoder and encoder slides, because AV1 is only in the decoders. We're not going to see a hardware AV1 encoder for a little while. That's gonna it's gonna be a couple years, but it will. Intel 11th Gen Core processors do decode AV1, but they can encode HEVC, H.264, VP9. I actually haven't looked up what SCC or RA is. I can't imagine it really matters right now, but just worth noting regardless. The open source scan converter, which is a upscaler, it's a line doubler, but it's basically an upscaler product. I cover it in all of my capture card reviews for hooking up retro consoles, as you guys know I have everywhere here. They finally released a new update, and I love seeing that they're still updating this hardware, because it's a few years old now, but it's basically a completely community-driven to some degree project. And so they released updated firmware for it, which has redesigned menus, improvements to preset selection and stuff to just make it a lot easier to use. So really cool to see that's still getting support. Next up, Panasonic is releasing new NDI PTZ cameras. Now, these are not going to be something you and I necessarily can afford or pick up for ourselves, because they cost $7,295 starting price. But these are 4K PTZ cameras, which PTZ stands for pan tilt zoom, so they have the full motors in them to look up and down, turn full 360, zoom in up to 24 times optical zoom, 4K signal, 74 degree field of view. It has HDMI, SDI, and NDI output, so you have your native digital video as well as NDI over the network, which is really freaking cool. These, of course, are used in conference rooms, classrooms, business meeting rooms, things like that, auditoriums where you want the camera kind of mounted off in the corner and you can zoom in on specific conversations or what have you. They're not necessarily meant for specific streamer scenarios, but I would love to get my hands on one to test it for that regardless, because I have had nothing but a blast messing with PTZ cameras for streaming because of all of the different like possibilities you can do with them. So still pretty cool regardless. What's even cooler, however, is this next news from Adobe Photoshop. Now, I have a few different links here for this because there's a lot of stuff to show off regarding it. But Adobe Photoshop 2021 has officially released, and with it, I'm gonna go ahead and switch back to here. And with it, they got some new neural filter, it's so hard to say that without sounding like an idiot, neural filter adjustments where you can change the age of someone's face, the lighting direction that their lighting is coming from, the way their head is turning, whether they're smiling or angry or all sorts of stuff. And then they've got a bunch of other beta filters which allow you to do a lot of pretty cool stuff. So here's the first tweet that kind of pointed me in that direction. But then I also have this video from LGR where he just kind of goes wild with it and starts doing all sorts of stuff to a picture of himself. And then by time it ends here, it just gets just completely disgusting. Is he not going to show it? It just gets completely wild. And then there's another video from Pixelperfect here that goes through basically like all the top filters available on it. And so you've got stuff for sky replacement, you've got JPEG artifact removal, you've got subject isolation that may or may not do a good job if you want to fake some bokeh. It's got some wild stuff going on there that I am incredibly excited to play with, even if, you know, there's not necessarily a ton of, I guess, real world use that I would necessarily have for it in the time being. However, as this Petapixel article points out, we're going to start having a lot of situations where we're going to see a lot more kind of fake people on the internet. And we're already seeing that. In fact, there was, I'm not going to dig too far into the politics or whatever right now, but there was an article about a full fake, basically dossier going around some far-right news sites that was made completely by a fake person. The entire face was generated by AI. The person did not exist, but it looked convincing enough that everyone was just rolling with it. And we're going to see a lot more of that with some of these features, because the face tuning apps that kind of like run on your phone are just, they have limitations. They have watermarks often, or they're lower quality because they're on the phone. The threshold of how good the results are from them is always significantly lower than something added into like a dedicated program like Adobe Photoshop on the desktop. And so having stuff like this that has a bit higher of a quality threshold and a lot more manual control over the settings, because you have the Pixelperfect video shows that you have access to all the changes that the filters make, and so you can actually clean it up yourself if you want to make it look more legit or whatever. By having all of that, where the threshold of, you know, convincingness is going to be pretty wild, and honestly probably potentially pretty scary in the future. So something to think about, even if we're just running headfirst into it, like, heck yeah, new technology, because yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. In other photography news, 7 Artisans debuted a 35mm f/0.95 lens. This is for only APS-C, so the equivalent on full frame is still like f1.4, I think, so whatever, but lower than f1 lenses are still really freaking cool to play with. This is only for, again, mirrorless cameras, APS-C, or smaller sensor, and so I actually picked this up for Micro Four Thirds. It's still on pre-order from B&H, so I don't know when it'll ship, but throwing that on a Panasonic GH5 or GH5S or G7, G85, whatever, should be a lot of fun. So I'm excited to play with it, because super wide aperture lenses are a lot of fun. They give you super shallow depth of field. They make it harder to, you know, get focus right, but they can be a lot of fun to play with, and usually they're very expensive. And the cool thing about this is it's only $250. This says $255, but on B&H it was only $249. So pretty excited. Don't have a clue when it'll get here. It says 2 to 4 weeks. It could be longer given COVID, but I'm very excited to check it out. Going back to Adobe for a second, they finally added, so in 2018 or 2019, and I'm not 100% sure right now, I made videos on it at the time, I think it was 2018, Adobe added quick sync support to Adobe Premiere Pro, which uses the iGPU on Intel GPUs to encode and decode H.264 footage, which sped up a lot of timelines, sped up a lot of encodes, but was limited to those with iGPUs or with iGPUs enabled. And for example, my 9900K board and the board I'm going to be ultimately putting my 10900K CPUs in, those disable the iGPU because they are overclocking boards, and that helps them get better power management and headroom and whatever. And so that was kind of limited to who could use it. And given that GPUs both for AMD and NVIDIA have had video encoding and decoding support for like 10 years now, it's been kind of weird that Premiere never really implemented it. Well, a few months back, they added GPU encode support. So NVENC or AMD AMF VCE could be used for encoding, and they have finally added, at least in a beta, GPU decode support for H.264 and HEVC footage. And through Puget Systems testing here, they have found that it actually improves performance quite significantly. Now, they have found that through the Premiere implementation, the performance of the quick sync on iGPU versus a dedicated GPU was about the same, at least for H.264 footage, which is weird because ultimately those two, like the NVDEC chip on a 2080 versus a quick sync chip, perform very differently in normal like direct access testing. But in Premiere, it seems to be kind of like performance normalized, so it's about the same. But of course, then everybody who doesn't have an iGPU gets that benefit. And at least from what I saw during the original round of encode tests back in like 2018, they can kind of both do the job, so maybe speed things up a little bit by decoding separate clips. However, this is still performing worse than things perform in DaVinci Resolve, so hopefully they keep working at it and improving it some more, and hopefully they add AV1 decode support for next-gen graphics cards. But for now, pretty exciting. However, something worth noting here, and this doesn't cover it, I don't have it pulled up, but if you check the NVIDIA decode and encode support matrix, 422 color footage, which is what a lot of the new cameras shoot on, the A7S III, all of that, those all shoot in 422. And NVDEC, NVIDIA's decoder, and I believe AMD's, although they don't document it as clearly, does not support decoding 422 footage. So you have 420, which a lot of cameras still shoot, and like your phone will still shoot, and OBS will shoot, or whatever. And then 444, which is like for super zoom in and stuff, are supported, but 422 is not. So those of you shooting on some of the newer cameras like the A7S2, or A7S III rather, may find that you don't have quite as much of a performance gain as you like, because decoding that footage is not yet supported. I'm told they're still working, NVIDIA's still trying to make that happen, but currently it is not supported, so that was kind of disappointing. Premiere also got a new feature this week, adding in speech to text. Now, this news shooter article touts it as a new feature entirely, because it's part of the early access beta program. However, Premiere previously had a speech to text program in it. It just didn't work very well. This one's powered by Adobe Sensei now, and it processes your audio, your dialogue, whatever, to translate it into captions, which you can then use for YouTube, for whatever video site you're on, or just for making subtitles. And currently, it supports English, Spanish, Japanese, Korean, French, German, Chinese, Hindi, and a couple other languages. And it should be pretty cool. The original one, you could like feed it special keywords that it could try to match to if it doesn't recognize a specific word. I don't know how that applies here. I haven't tested it out yet, but it is a pretty cool feature regardless. And like I said, will help a lot of people build captions for YouTube and things like that. So pretty freaking cool regardless. One last piece of news before we jump to our unboxing section here. Actually, two last pieces of news, sorry. The gaming network VENN. If you haven't seen it, they are a content network kind of like G4 version 2. They do 24/7 content. They have dedicated shows and stuff. I've been a huge advocate. I've been working on a video essay about it because I have a lot of thoughts about it, and I find it very important for the streaming and content creation scene on the whole, but it turned into like a 12-page script, and so I don't know that it will actually get released as a video versus a post on my website. But I have written a massive essay about it, basically, and I'm not sure what to do with it. But they just did a funding round for, investor funding and stuff, and they raised $26 million in Series A funding, and a former MTV executive by the name of Jeff Jacobs are joining as a general manager to help on growth and things like that. So pretty cool. Adds a little bit more legitimacy to the platform, helps make sure that it stays around a little bit longer because they have actual funding. So excited there. And kind of in the inverse of that, Quibi, I've never said this out loud, so I don't know how it's supposed to say, but I'm going to call it Quibi, is shutting down. Everyone said it would die. No one understood the platform. It is a short-form mobile focused streaming service for content. I kept seeing ads for it, but all I ever really saw, like from people who used it, was memes about how it was going to die. It's finally shutting down. So, yeah, that's happening. Let's jump to an ad break real quick, and then we'll do some unboxings before we get into some more serious news for this week.
PlayStation.
Do you feel restricted in your streaming setup? Do you wish that big mic could come with you, or just be smaller, less big, you know? Or do you just want something less in your face? Well, we'll throw the Mod Mic Wireless into your setup and experience streaming freedom like never before. Use it while you're walking, use it while you're talking, use it while in the world of VR, use it while you're on the toilet during your BRB scene, use it while building a PC. You're not tethered anymore. The Mod Mic Wireless, streaming freedom.
This video is brought to you by Nerd or Die and their new terminal Cyberpunk-themed stream layout. You've got alerts, you've got overlays, you've got a full layout to choose from, customizable elements, stinger transitions, and all the source files, if you wish, available to edit for yourself and change colors, change aspects, or render them out for YouTube videos. Pretty cool stuff here, and you can save 15% across the entire website by heading over to eposvox.gg/nerdordie and use coupon code eposvox at checkout.
Sega is rolling out a new video game console this week.
It's one world. Why view it through two windows? Panasonic introduces the 36-inch SVGA TV.
You know, I have that little old commercial for that Panasonic SVGA TV in there, and I'm pretty sure now that I think about it, my high school chemistry class had that TV on one of the TV cards because they always had something hooked up that had both computer and, you know, analog video signals hooked up, and it looks almost exactly like that. It's really fascinating. Kind of mad I didn't go back and see if I could grab that, because that would be a really cool... It has to weigh like 200 pounds, but would be pretty cool to have regardless. So we have a few things we're going to check out in the unboxing section today. Just this whole section is mostly dedicated to previewing upcoming content. So for example, today we're checking out the Maonocaster. This is kind of like a little Rodecaster Pro or Go XLR kind of alternative. It's a little portable podcast console. Kind of, I think a lot of people are trying to use it for mobile and things like that. And so I got sent this for review. I haven't had a chance to even touch it yet. So I want to go ahead and unbox it here. And I do not have control of my scenes. There we go. So go ahead and get this bad boy open here. Like I said, it's going to look very similar to the Go XLR and things like that. Although it has these giant wheels on it that make it look like a DJ turntable or something, which is a little silly. I've got color user manual here. Pretty nice. This looks like a setup wiring guide. How to connect it to a smartphone or tablet. I will be very interested to see if it works with the iPad Pro that I have, since apparently the USB-C iPad Pros do not work with any USB mics due to some power delivery restrictions on them, which was very unfortunate to find out during my Shure MB7 review. So, pretty frustrating. So yeah, this looks like a DJ mixing board here. Like, these dials are needlessly, like, there is no reason for these dials to be quite so freaking large. Like, you don't need that. And it's designed wiki scratch. But it looks like you've got a sound effects pad board here. We've got control buttons for music, sidechain, denoise, pitch, effect. Got an echo slider. Oh, that feels terrible. That echo slider feels... Oh, that's just like grinding against... Oh, that feels terrible. And monitor control. That is one of the worst feeling faders I have ever felt. So plasticky. And then we've got some EQ knobs up here, as well as a recording level. This layout is abysmal. Like, sorry, this is probably a pretty good product. I've heard good things about it so far, but this layout is meant to appear, like, it's meant to show a gimmicky layout that they designed before they designed the rest of the product. And it is so freaking gimmicky, and just nothing is laid out coherently because they tried to fit it into this particular image. On the back here, you've got a bunch of 3.5 millimeter jacks. You've got pod 1 output, pod 2 output, pod 3 output. I don't know what that means. We've got an LED and power button, USB-C cable, a general output, music input, headset, mic 1 and mic 2. So, yeah. And then it comes with a bunch of audio cables in the rest of the box, because that's a pretty thick box. So that's pretty neat. But first impressions are not necessarily high, but I get the feeling they will fade away once I'm actually using it. So I will be excited to, check it out in a video coming soon, assuming I get to it soon. Next up, we have, this is the Creative SFXI Gamer headset. This is a USB-C gaming headset with what is supposed to be a high-quality broadcast microphone. And this is their Super FXI technology, which sounds really silly. Like the name of it is just kind of silly sounding. Super SFXI. But if you recall, I lost my knife. Where the hell did my knife go? Hello? I just had it. I used it yesterday. Well, that's not cool. We're using a screwdriver today. If you recall from my CES coverage, I actually spent quite a lot of time, maybe not in videos, but in my physical time at CES, I spent quite a lot of time demoing Creative's SFXI technology. And actually, it ended up being one of my favorite things that I saw at CES. Like once I tested it in my ears, and they had this whole demo where they had us like fine tune our ears to their app and all this stuff. It was some really cool audio tech for like 3D interesting audio. So I am curious to see how this translates to a gaming headset. So here's the headset itself. Doesn't look anything too like unique or crazy. Just a standard solid band headset. So this is gonna hurt my head. I'm a much bigger fan of the suspension style, but this is the style that most people wear and use. You've got a 3.5mm line in and a USB-C port here, as well as the mic hookup. I won't be able to test this live because adding audio devices to OBS after the fact is never a good move, but we will still be testing it out in a video regardless. And then this should be where the microphone is. Hello? There we go. And then here is our big boomy microphone, which is it's pretty large for a headset mic. So we'll see if it actually sounds good, since it's not a wireless headset that works in its favor, because wireless headsets usually don't allocate enough bandwidth for good microphones. So we'll see when the time comes if it actually holds up to my rather kind of strict requirements for headsets these days. Like used to, I reviewed a ton of headsets, and as long as they were like usable depending on price, I was a fan of them because they worked. But these days, when you have dedicated mic options and there are so many like good headphones on the market, it takes a lot for me to really be a fan of an actual gaming headset. Couple more things wanted to talk about for upcoming content today. We got, oh Jesus, here, I'll just show these real quick. We don't need to unbox them. I picked up another knockoff webcam. Someone actually emailed me recommending this. $22 for what looks like a Brio. I've been reviewing another knockoff camera. So I've been doing the super budget capture card reviews. I want to get into doing budget webcam reviews, even though most of them I'm going to be snarky about. They're going to be crap, but still checking them out regardless. Picked up this little guy right here because everyone keeps talking about it for VHS captures, and I've been working on another big video like my mini DV and 8mm tape archiving video about the best way to capture your VHS tapes. And never do I usually consider devices like these, especially since it's like $100-something bucks, but everyone keeps swearing by it, so I'm at least gonna give it a try before I trash on it too much. But whatever. I finally got my hands on the Mario Kart Live thing. I had to import this from Japan using Play Asia because they were the only one I found with them in stock. But this is basically like a Hot Wheels car in Mario theme with a GoPro attached to it that you control with your Switch. And I am in love with the idea. This is what I always wanted as a kid, playing with Hot Wheels. But like, I never saw it advertised. And then suddenly a couple YouTubers were making videos about it and it wasn't in stock anywhere. And I was like, what the hell? So they had low stock and they never really advertised it. So I was kind of bummed about that, but I picked one up at least. So I am excited to check it out. This device right here, however, this is from a company called KiloView. You know, whatever. This is an NDI encoder box. So after my previous NDI coverage, I had a couple companies reach out about wanting me to check out their NDI encoders, and this one is pretty cool. So this is their H.264 HDMI encoder that also does NDI. So it's basically like a capture card box here. You've got 12 volt power, you've got a USB connectivity, I think for control or firmware updating, I'm not 100% sure yet. You've got audio pass through, you've got HDMI pass through, and then you got Ethernet hookup. And then you've also got 2 USB ports and a micro SD card slot, I believe for, local encoding, for like recording a local copy. So this will do mostly 1080p. They sent me this one so I could check it out based on, kind of being more for game streamers, because they have some 4K models that are a little beefier, but I wanted to start with this one. So I believe it's 1080p. I'm not seeing it listed here. But this will encode and stream NDI and also H.264 over your network. And so I can plug this in, say up here in my retro room where I'm doing, retro console streaming, run my HDMI pass through to my monitor and stuff, play locally, and then stream it over to my network to a computer that's more capable of streaming. Or if you're playing on the computer, you can pass this through, run it over the network to your computer to then encode later. Or I use NDI from going one half of my living room where the workbench is to the other half to do workbench streams and stuff like that. So really cool to have it all contained in one little box here with some audio pass through as well, like some pretty cool stuff. So excited to check that out for a future review. Last thing, I've had this sitting on my desk for months and have never actually unboxed it on the channel or checked it out yet, and I owe them a review of it. So by unboxing it, I am now obligating myself to actually check it out more sooner rather than later. This is a new loop deck called the Loop Deck Live. This is one that's more built kind of for streamers rather than just photo or video editing. It is very small, it is sleek, it's got adjustment knobs, it's got buttons, and it's got these touch sections like the Stream Deck. So these will basically be Stream Deck buttons, and then these little side things, it's very hard to see on the lighting, these little side things can basically be like little sliders or faders. Like, this is really freaking cool. And then it just connects via a USB-C port. So I am stoked. I haven't checked out the newer like Loop Deck CT and stuff like that came out, but I have used the Loop Deck Plus for photo editing. And other than the fact that it takes up so much desk space that I usually just have it under my desk collecting dust, but whenever I'm doing like a big photo edit section or something, I use the Loop Deck Plus for my photo editing and have loved it. So I am excited to check this out. I hear the software needs some work, but other than that, should be pretty cool. So excited to finally get a review of that going, of course. Yeah, so that's all I had to check out for today. A little bit more unboxing than usual, but like I said, a lot of the purpose of this is both the preview content, because there's always like delays in my schedule, so I want you to know, hey, I'm working on it, but also because it kind of obligates me to finally, start working on things. So there's that as well. So let's go ahead and talk about the Twitch DMCA situation. Now, I am not the king of hot takes when it comes to Twitch content. For that, I'll point you to Devin Nash. He is more in tune with the scene probably than I am, given that he runs an agency that works with streamers and yada yada. But I did want to, talk about it for those of you who are unaware and stuff. And I guess I'll go on and cut to the tweets here. So starting back in June, streamers started receiving DMCA strikes, both on Twitter, weirdly enough, although there's been no talk on that front since, and on Twitch for their clips for music being played in the game or in your videos. And so your VODs were usually safe because Twitch implemented a sort of content ID system, a super lazy one, that allowed just basically automatically muted sections of your VODs that contain music. And that covered Twitch's butt, but kind of screwed up your VODs or whatever. Well, that didn't apply to clips. And so all of your clips that contained music you don't have licenses to, particularly from RIAA backed, major music labels, were still up for grabs. And so a lot of streamers started receiving DMCA strikes. And these are a big deal. It's not like a content ID claim on YouTube, because Twitch never implemented a content ID system. And at the time, I was ranting and raving about how this is Twitch's fault. Twitch has failed to protect its streamers, and everyone's like, no, it's fine. It's just copyright law is bad. We just need to change copyright law, whatever. And just didn't want to be mad, didn't want to do anything about it. And they maybe deleted some clips, but otherwise went about their business because it seemed to just kind of stop. And I believe I did a streamer news segment on this in which I called it a warning shot. I said, hey, this is Universal, Sony, UMG, whoever, firing a warning shot at Twitch, saying you need to get your act together or they're coming for you. No one wanted to listen to me. Fast forward to this month, that warning shot is now a real shot. Now streamers are getting actual DMCA takedowns for VODs and clips that have copyright material in them, and Twitch is just flopping like a freaking fish, just failing to actually support the streamers in a way that makes sense for this content. And so there's a whole Twitter thread here of people complaining about getting this and not being able to figure it out, because Twitch's approach is to just automatically delete the VOD or clip if you get a DMCA and then not tell you what you got a DMCA on. And this is a problem because, especially since it is a strike against your channel and you could have your channel shut down and terminated and be banned from Twitch for it, there is no process that Twitch has in place to allow you to appeal these or to counter notify or anything like that YouTube's had for over a decade. And by automatically deleting the clip and then not telling you what it is, you have no way of finding it to even consider filing like a counterclaim or an appeal or anything like that if a system was in place. They're literally just like deleting the evidence so that no one ever knows what actually happened here. And so you're gonna start seeing some Twitch channels dropping like flies with no real evidence other than it was copyright material. And there's not a whole lot to do here. Now, yes, just to cover all the hot takes that people will have, yes, in some situations, this is a case of streamers for years just played regular radio music that they didn't have licenses to and thought they could get away with it, even though it's always been against Twitch's rules. Twitch never really enforced it, so it's somewhat on Twitch for not enforcing the rules, but it's on those particular streamers for streaming that music. However, there is a wide gamut of situations in which people are being affected that don't fall into that category. There are people who streamed IRL streaming that just walked by a store or something playing music on an intercom that are now getting DMCA takedowns on their clips and they can't figure out where it's coming from. There are people who stream games like Beat Saber, which were a big scene on Twitch that uses music that's licensed through the game. And yes, the licensing doesn't apply to you streaming that game, but reasonably Twitch should have handled that, and they didn't. Twitch Sings was also a thing that they're shutting down come January, but that was a thing. On top of the fact that there's certain, there's the risk with all of this crumbling down. There's the risk of this happening with video game music played in games, music played in events that you're co-streaming, like E3, whatever. Like, there's going to be risks of this with everything because Twitch has failed to implement a system that protects its streamers. And so they're doing a lot more DMCA takedowns and they're not really giving streamers notice. The tool that they've implemented to actually get rid of your clips is just abysmal. It is slow. It is super simplistic. It basically is just requiring everyone to just delete their life's work, which is absurd. I'm actually not doing it. I'm risking my channel being banned if I ever get DMCA'd. Because at some point I was playing music on the channel. I don't know if it was this channel or my old Ted Demolisher Twitch channel. I don't know, but I know I played unlicensed music on the Twitch. But I'm not going through and deleting all my clips. And so I'm running a risk of being banned for that. The tool that they have scrounged together to let you delete all your clips has been terrible. People have had bad luck with it. And now the RIAA and, the music industry is now sending letters, slamming Twitch and coming after Twitch for doing a terrible job. Now, the RIAA is putting out tweets acting like they're on streamers' side here because they want to go after Twitch for this. Like this one, which is saying, telling creators it's their job to find infringements and denying them access to some platforms to do this is outrageous. They're like, oh, we're on your side. But I didn't even see this before. As Harris pointed out, it's possible to make a true statement and also still be the bad guy. Exactly. So the RIAA is leveraging streamers to go after Twitch because they're still being the bad guy here. They are not your friend. So they may be on the right side of criticizing Twitch, but that doesn't make them on the right side of what's going on here either. And the issue here is that Twitch had X number of years, multiple years, to implement a system that would have actually benefited streamers and prevented all of this from going down. YouTube, in like 2013, I want to say, if my memory serves me correct. I've been around for everything that happened on YouTube, and every time people leave YouTube for Twitch and they're like, we're leaving because of this issue, I say everything that YouTube has faced in terms of copyright issues, advertiser friendly issues, advertising issues in the first place, all of those issues that affect YouTube will eventually affect Twitch. Now, it took way longer than I expected because it took longer for Twitch to get kind of mainstream recognition, but it's still happening here. And so YouTube in 5, 7, 8 years ago implemented a tool called Content ID, which allowed copyright holders to upload their content to it, and then it will automatically detect that content in other videos. Now, this appeased both creators, theoretically, a lot of people were still mad about it, of course, but it appeased creators and copyright holders because it allowed them to identify and track all uses of their material. It allowed them to block it if they desire. It allowed them control over it. So they could block it, they could monetize it themselves, or they could just track it. And it allowed them to know when their content is being used. And it took from, say, 2010 YouTube, if you uploaded like a live concert session of a band, you would get an actual copyright strike against your channel and risk being taken, your channel being banned, to you get a Content ID claim, which is relatively harmless. You just maybe don't make money on the video. It protected creators. It may have inconvenienced creators, but otherwise protected creators, doesn't get them banned, and made the copyright holders happy. Twitch never developed anything like this. They made a pseudo Content ID system that allowed your VODs to get muted. But that's it. There's no transparency. There's no communication to the streamer. It doesn't identify which song, which copyright holder, anything like that. It's just like, lol, your VOD's muted. Have fun. And so that encouraged streamers to just keep playing music and not care about their VODs anyway, even though it was against Twitch's rules. Twitch never enforced it, and they simply just went with that. But then there was no system that actually did what copyright holders wanted. And of course, none of that applied to clips, and none of that applied to live content. As annoying as it is, when you stream live on YouTube, if you do have some like a Content ID detected song that is marked for like blocking or monetizing or whatever, and your stream is monetized, YouTube will give you notifications in the stream dashboard and be like, you need to turn that off. You need to stop playing that music. We're going to shut you down in 3, 2, 1. And if it's egregious enough, they will literally shut down your stream. This is annoying as a creator, but it protects creators from these major DMCA issues, and it also protects YouTube. Twitch has not done this. So Twitch barely protected itself. The original muting tool was purely designed to protect Twitch and not the streamers, but it barely does that, as you can see by the RIAA now going after Twitch. And it doesn't protect streamers at all. Streamers have no control to find these clips, to find these copyright violations, to find anything. So they just have to delete their entire life's work, just straight up delete it. And they don't have any way to kind of bridge this gap. And so essentially, due to Twitch's own incompetence and refusal to support the streamers and do the bare minimum that, you know, YouTube did 8 years ago and set the groundwork, because YouTube, by doing this and showing that the RIAA would play ball and allow them to do this without taking down the website, then laid the groundwork that other content websites just have to do a similar thing. And Twitch, being backed by freaking Amazon, should be able to produce this, and they never did. I don't know if it's laziness. I don't know if they just wanted to play chicken with copyright holders to be like, you won't, we're Amazon, you won't, and then they're like, we will, but they didn't do it, and it's a huge problem, and everyone is suffering because of it, and that's just unacceptable. I don't know where we go from here. I don't know how we hold Twitch accountable for this, because if you've seen any of the kind of social issue related tweets about Twitch where they're like, hold us accountable, and then they don't stay accountable for it. I don't know how we fix this without everyone just leaving Twitch, and without Mixer, we don't really have anywhere to go other than YouTube. But this is a huge problem, and we need to make sure that we don't forget this, because if Twitch never addresses this, never implements better tools, this will continue to be an issue. And as the conversation with like the Stadia creative director and stuff points out, this could affect streamers in other ways if game publishers decide they want to start claiming their music or whatever. Like, it could become a big issue, and Twitch is seemingly completely unprepared to even pretend to protect streamers on this. So it sucks. I don't know, what the solution is other than Twitch going back in time and developing the tools that they need to, but this is what's going on, and this is why Twitch themselves are to blame here. Because there are a plethora of situations where a streamer can accidentally stream content that they don't own, and while yes, they could manually go back every individual stream, delete the VOD, delete the clips, whatever, the website, within the precedent set by YouTube, the website should have an obligation to its users to have those tools in place, and they didn't. Facebook even has those tools in place. Twitch does not. Twitch has failed streamers. Okay, I'm gonna get a drink. We're gonna talk about the next topic here. That's the big one for today, but I got quite a few I want to mention here as well. My throat's killing me now, though. All right, so moving on to, I guess, lighter news. To be honest, I wish they'd remove monetizing from YouTube. It ruins the experience. Nope. That is the worst possible take. I say as a full-time YouTuber, but no. It didn't ruin the experience when it was introduced. YouTube wasn't any better prior to having monetization. Just no. Yeah, no, get out. In better news, the Apple TV app is finally coming to PS4 and PS5, and the PS5 remote will actually have a shortcut for it. This is pretty cool because Apple originally was like trying to keep it all isolated to Apple, but once it started becoming a content delivery service where there's Apple TV exclusive shows now, so they're akin to Hulu and Netflix with Apple TV, they are having to branch out to other platforms, and Sony's consoles have been kind of left in the dust regards to this. So now we're getting that. So pretty cool to see Apple playing ball with other companies now. If you saw my channel last fall, you saw I did a big sponsored tutorial course masterclass about XSplit Broadcaster and Gamecaster. Well, as of this month, XSplit Gamecaster is now branching off to be its own brand of just Gamecaster, no longer XSplit. So XSplit will still have Broadcaster as their main brand, but Gamecaster is going to be its own dedicated app doing its own thing. Currently, as far as they say, this won't affect users at all, and it will still be the same team and the same backend company developing things. The reason that I can speculate that they are separating it as an independent, separate product, separate from the XSplit brand, is to open it up to separate kind of investment. So they have XSplit Broadcaster, which again is a completely different app in a manner of speaking, and then they have XSplit Gamecaster. By having a separate product targeting a different audience and things like that, they can then have separate investors or potentially buyers come in and acquire the company, bring in more developers, invest more in that specific product, and kind of have its own path. Whereas having it alongside Broadcaster does kind of make investment or, planning paths, a roadmap look a little more complicated. So hopefully this won't mean anything too negative for users using it. They say it's going to stay free, easy to use as it has been, but that is still a change regardless. However, I don't think they plan on going anywhere anytime soon. They just got integrated with the Xbox Game Bar. So the Game Bar has gotten some upgrades ever since they removed the mixer streaming from it, including performance overlays, basically a task manager, things like that. Well, now you can also stream with XSplit Gamecaster straight from the Game Bar. Now, Gamecaster already had its own game overlay, which was pretty cool and whatever, but the Game Bar kind of integration kind of brings everything together, so you have a little bit more control that the Gamecaster overlay may not have offered. So pretty cool to see that as well. The Elgato Wave Mic got some updates as available in this thread from Julian, the general manager of Elgato. It now works natively with PS4, including all of the controls. Pretty cool. If you mount it upside down, you can now flip the light direction so that it matches the direction that you would be spinning the dial when upside down. The Wave 1 button mainly controls your headphone monitoring volume, but now you can switch it to also control your gain, which turns the Wave 1 into a Wave 2 and further muddies the point of buying a Wave 3, because really doing it all in software makes the most sense anyway, because that button goes ka-chunk into your microphone anyway. So whatever. And then they also added gain lock for apps that add automatic gain control to your microphone. You can now lock that to prevent that from happening, which is useful for Microsoft Teams and maybe Zoom or Skype, because those historically kind of mess with your audio as well. So pretty cool there. Next up, Google Play Music. That's still Elgato. Google Play Music is now officially dead. I believe October 20th was the cutoff date for it, and then you have till like December to transfer your music. I have transferred over as of late August, I think. I've transferred over to YouTube Music, and I've had kind of mixed experience with YouTube Music compared to Google Play Music so far. The recommendations don't feel quite as good, surprisingly. Like it just, like at one point I played what I thought was the playlist of my likes, and it had a bunch of my likes in there, but it kept feeding me like every song from Bring Me the Horizon. Now, I like a couple songs from Bring Me the Horizon, but I don't necessarily like them all. And for whatever reason, it just really locked into, you were going to listen to music you have already liked, and then every song from Bring Me the Horizon's discography. So like every other song was a Bring Me the Horizon song, which I did not want. I have not encountered that quite as much since then, but even still, like if I go to my playlist, like I can pull it up here so I can get the exact name. I go to YouTube Music. I go to Your Likes, Auto Playlist. When I shuffle play it, it is mostly songs that I have liked, but there will be songs that I have not liked before in that playlist. There's songs that I do want to like most of the time, but there's songs that I don't like in there. So it's still throwing in some recommendations, weirdly enough. And then it will still run out of songs. So like on Google Play Music and on this, once you have shuffled through every song in your likes, it will just end the playlist. But it doesn't make sense for it to end the playlist, and there's no loop option still on that either, just like Google Play Music, which is disappointing. But there's no reason to end the playlist playback if you're going to insert recommendations anyway. Like, just play some recommendations. Like, it's... I've had a weird experience with YouTube Music so far, but the Switch has not been terrible. Originally, I was frustrated because originally it would not let me transfer my Google Play Music to my Epos Vox YouTube account. It said it could not be a brand account. It could only be a personal account. And the brand account has all the videos I watch as well. So music videos and stuff that I've already liked should be imported. However, now you can sign in with brand accounts, and I've already moved everything over to one and started liking things on there and gotten the algorithm going. So it's kind of dumb that they limited it and now brought it back when I've already been using it. More drama surrounding the Oculus products getting integrated with Facebook. Now, if you deactivate your Facebook profile, it will deactivate your Oculus as well. And if you delete your Facebook account, it just deletes all your games. That's just ridiculous. Like, there's nothing, you know, Oculus is still making some of the best headsets from what I can tell based on other people's thoughts and reviews. So there's not a whole lot you can do about it, but it sucks. Regardless, you will be able to plug in an external hard drive from your PS4 to your PS5 to transfer your games over a little bit more quickly if you have slower internet or whatever. So that is pretty cool. Love to see that. I do use external storage with my game consoles because the internal hard drives are never enough. Twitch is currently testing out a feature called Celebrations, which replaces third-party donation or tip websites. However, the split with Twitch is 50-50. This is, of course, Twitch both trying to integrate features natively that were previously handled by bots or third-party tools. This started once Mixer got introduced because Mixer was using a crap load of features that were already present on Twitch through the form of bots and third-party tools. And so once Mixer kind of upped the competition, Twitch started integrating those as well. But this is a 50-50 split versus 100% split with donations before. So I don't imagine a lot of people using this. YouTube has also introduced this recently in the form of applauses. However, it's been a very slow rollout and I haven't got access to it yet, and I don't know how that works necessarily. And I don't think any viewers are really using it because no one seems to understand it. But YouTube has also been doing the same thing for like second half of this year so far. A new image editing program. There's been quite a few Photoshop competitors recently, but a new one is trying to dethrone Photoshop as well by introducing a lot of features, including a ton of cool filters, Gaussian blur, gradient maps, HDR merge, sharpening, chromatic aberration, a whole lot of filters. But they're also adding their own bespoke RAW engine that is GPU accelerated, which is helping you edit your RAW photos. One of the reasons photographers still stick with Lightroom and things like that is the actual RAW image editor, or RAW, debayering technology, in Adobe Camera Raw will produce a different looking image than say in On1 or in the other editing programs. I forget the names of them, but in all of the different, raw photo editors. And so them introducing their own and having it be GPU accelerated to be a little bit faster is pretty cool. I will be checking this out soon, seeing if it's worth using, because some of the effects they have introduced look pretty cool as well. Speaking of the RIAA, I mentioned, they're not your friend. They have been on a blitz taking down a ton of GitHub projects for downloading YouTube videos because they cite the ability to download a music video, which is absurd. One of the projects caught in this is YouTube DL, which is a Python project that allows you to download videos from YouTube. And while I usually can't talk about it on YouTube, I usually recommend it a lot because it's been very useful for my workflow whenever I'm referencing videos, referencing my own videos, whatever, because you can get full quality. The RIAA has taken down a ton of projects that rely on these, and it's absolutely absurd because the project itself is not an infringing work. It's just a couple references in the documentation that seem to have broken the rules. And so theoretically, all they would have to do is edit the documentation and they'd be good to go. But the fact that they're doing this at all is honestly just absurd. Over the past year, I have been a huge advocate of making sure that the future, TV and AV receiver stuff that you've been upgrading to is HDMI 2.1 compatible, so you can get new features from next-gen consoles. You can get 4K 120, adaptive refresh rate, all of that. Well, apparently there's a major bug in the HDMI chipsets for HDMI 2.1 products, including the AVRs or the receivers from Denon that I talked about in a previous streaming news. Apparently, HDMI chips made by Panasonic seem to have a bug that prevent them from working with the Xbox Series X or the new NVIDIA graphics cards that don't allow them to actually output 4K 120. And this appears to not be something that can be updated with firmware. So that will be very terrifying if that's the case. I would keep an eye on this before investing too much to see if new products come out that are free of this bug, or just alternatives come out, or if they do like a recall and redistribute the product to buyers with the updated chipset. I don't know. But that kind of defeats the point if you can't use the features. And I was super stoked. I was like, finally, we're getting HDMI 2.1 receivers. And they can't really do a lot of the HDMI 2.1 features. That's awkward. So there's been a lot of jokes about the Xbox Series X looking like a fridge, and it finally became a real thing. I just got to check it out, and it is absolutely insane. It is a real fridge. For some reason, it is massive, but that was the crate for it. But still, like, it is a full-fledged fridge that looks like the Xbox Series X. I think it said Xbox One X. That would be insane. This says only one fan could take it home. However, Aaron Greenberg, the GM of Xbox Games Marketing, was asking if he could actually, if he actually made it available to buy, if anyone would buy it. And out of almost 50K votes, over half the people said yes, including myself. I would say maybe it should be a mini fridge and not a full-size fridge, but that's wild if they actually like fully release it to the public. First bit of AMD news for today, hot off the heels of NVIDIA purchasing ARM. AMD has agreed to buy Xilinx for $35 billion, and this looks very similar to NVIDIA's ARM deal, but could mean that they have another microchip maker in their midst that could allow them to mainly just pursue alternative profits for now, kind of like with NVIDIA. They're like investing in AI and things like that, and perhaps that's what AMD hopes to pursue here. But long term, we could see some integration into their cards and stuff, and I believe Xilinx is used for a lot of video capture related hardware, so we could potentially see down the line AMD getting some improvements for video encoding or video capture capabilities, but that would be multiple years down the road, at least based on how NVIDIA ARM buy is structured. Like, there's not going to be ARM chips on NVIDIA GPUs or anything anytime soon, so similar thing here, but This stream still not sponsored by Sunkist, but AMD was very excited to announce this, and I am very interested to see. It's a big move for the company regardless, so it's a flag of success regardless, but it will be interesting to see what actual results come of it in the future. I'm officially convinced that Cyberpunk 2077 is actually Half-Life 3. It is delayed again by 21 days. And it's just going to keep getting delayed forever, and we're just going to find out that it was never real, and it was Half-Life 3, and Gabe Newell's going to release Cyberpunk 2077 in the year 2077. That's that. Noctua is releasing more black CPU coolers in their Chromox line, including the D15S, as well as the U9S, and a couple of others, which is pretty cool to see. I know a lot of people are super against their brown and beige scheme, so now you have more options. I personally don't care how they look as long as they perform well, but a lot of people are very excited for this regardless. You have until tomorrow, the end of October, to upgrade for your first year of Pretzel Premium Yearly to save 50% off with the coupon code Don't DMCA me, bro. Pretzel Music is a stream safe music streaming service where they have acquired the actual licenses for streaming and things like that in YouTube, and they have separate YouTube licenses and Twitch licenses. They've actually negotiated all of that, unlike Twitch with their soundtrack, where they got the wrong types of licenses for soundtracks. So if you want to buy it today or tomorrow, you have that option to save 50%. Tubebuddy, a company that I have worked with plenty of times in the past, and the tool that I still use every day for my YouTube videos, actually got acquired. And as far as I know, they are a completely independent project. So they were completely bootstrapped by the founder and the few staff that they have since 2014, and they provide you a lot of enhanced tools for managing your YouTube channel. And honestly, a lot of my single man team YouTube management would not be possible without the tools that I have used in Tubebuddy. So this is pretty interesting. They got acquired by a company called VENN, which is an AI entertainment company, and they got interested in them, I believe, last year, as they want to use their AI technology in more of the influencer space. And so they're really interested in taking Tubebuddy's kind of analytics and understanding of how YouTube works and applying their AI to that to help, I guess, creators optimize for YouTube more and to build better social media presences. So we'll see. There were no terms of the buyout listed, so we don't know how much they got bought for or anything like that. However, I do see future Tubebuddy analytics tools using AI and allowing you to get even better SEO potential and stuff from it, being pretty cool. This does, however, probably means that the bin company now has access to your user data if you've used Tubebuddy, so that's worth considering as well, I guess. Lastly, Netflix is price hiking their most popular plans from words. I'm tired. We're at the end of the stream. They're price hiking their plans again. The most popular plan is $14. The premium tier is increasing to $18. I believe we are on the one that's increasing to $14. And originally it was $14 to get the 4K version. So now we feel dumb for downgrading, or to not get the 4K version, just the HD version. So now we feel dumb for downgrading back to the $14 or the $9 plan, I think it was, to get bumped back up to 14. So whatever. Nothing we can do about it other than cancel if we don't want it anymore. But given the pandemic, we've been using Netflix a lot lately. And then Adobe Flash support is ending soon. They've been announcing that for a couple years now. And Windows has released an optional update to just completely remove Flash from your PC. Now, you don't necessarily want to do this right away overall in terms of usability's sake, because that would mean that you lose access to platforms or websites or whatever that are still leveraging Flash. But from a security standpoint, once support is dropped, no security updates will be added. So any potential security and vulnerabilities will still affect your PC. So you want to remove it for that purpose. So the choice is yours. I am going to start investing in acquiring and looking at a lot of archives of old Flash games, because I missed that era and it's been continuously killed off by Flash itself being killed off. And that's kind of disappointing. A lot of cool stuff could be done with Flash that I don't feel has been fully replicated with the, alternative HTML5 and things like that technology that has been released since. So, whatever. That's your streamer news for this week, guys. That's about it. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. I've got some big... Oh! That's not all the news. Hunter pointed out I totally skipped... I just totally skipped over the topic. I will briefly touch on... I don't really have a whole lot to say on it right now, because wait for reviews. AMD's RDNA 2 launched. That's Scott Herkelman up on stage talking about the new graphics cards. We've got AMD 6000 series graphics cards, which aim to compete with NVIDIA's cards for once. So you have like a 649 that competes with the RTX 3080, and then a 999 card that seems to compete with the RTX 3090. Of course, we don't actually know any of this until we see actual benchmarks and testing, but supposedly they're going to be pretty cool. They don't have any new tech as far as I can tell, as far as video encoders go. There was zero talk about it if they do. If they do, they should be sending me some cards to test. That was kind of my, I guess, leveraged review request was, if you got new streaming tech, we should talk. If not, don't worry about it. So I'm going to say, since they didn't talk about it, probably not, but exciting nonetheless. It does seem that AMD is actually competing with NVIDIA specs wise for once, which is pretty cool, I guess. But I don't know if it's not, if they still don't have any investment in the streaming scene, and they're still not managing the AMD encoder first party on OBS. I still don't think, I don't know. I still don't think it's the right call to go with them as a content creator. So we'll see. I'm excited for competition regardless. Keep them, NVIDIA on their heels. And one of my followers did notice that the renders, at least, of the card show no vent on the back and only 3 display outputs with a USB-C port, which is amusing because the cards already look like they kind of ripped off NVIDIA's 20 series design. So the fact that they're using the port that NVIDIA has already killed off is kind of amusing, but it is weird that they only have 3 monitor outputs. That's really disappointing, but we'll see if I can get my hands on one and if they do have new streaming tech. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Streamer News. I'm gonna get out of here, give my throat a rest. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. I do have some major behind the scenes news coming soon. Can't talk about it yet, but coming very soon. And make sure you ask every company that makes streaming products that are on this list if they will use the Stream Professor Approved badge. Just go hit them up on Twitter, send them a link to this, say that they need to use it, and contact me. I'll see you next time. Discord.gg/eposbox.